That's right. What's going on, everyone? Welcome back to another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. As always, you can hit that little notification bell, hit that subscribe button, get all of your Jersey First TV content from the Nader narrative to Real Talk with Fernando to Bridging the Gap. You can always check us out on jerseyfirst.org where you can sign up for our newsletter and sign the pledge to put Jersey first. And you can also check us out on demand anytime on J. Steven, my man, another week is in the books. And how are we feeling?
We're feeling great. We are feeling great. It's been a week, and a lot of things actually happened this week. I got big grade back at the start of the week. My contract's midterm. We talked a little bit about it. I
Nice.
knocked it out of the park. And you know what? I was actually going over it with some friends of mine at the law school, and like when you like you're waiting on that exam grade to come in and you get it, and all you care about is like the number. You don't really go through the breakdown of like what you got right, what you got wrong, where the points are allocated. So we were doing that. It was like a day or two after the grades had come out, and I realized something, and I'm really proud of this. And maybe you can, I don't know, we could talk about it for a hot second, but I got full credit, 10 out of 10 allotted points on the first essay that I had to write for an exam in law school, and I feel like that doesn't happen often. And I'm stinking proud of it because I was the only person that I encountered, at least in the 7 or 8 people that I had reviewed with, that was able to get a perfect score on a writing paper or part of an exam. I was pretty excited about it.
Yeah, I would say that the written portion of law school exams are probably supposed to be the hardest part. Like, you're not really
Mhm.
supposed to get perfect scores on that. So that's really impressive that you did. Like, the whole point, most of the time, of the written answers, it depends on the type of question, is that you're not going to get a perfect score because you're going to have to miss the small things. But that's awesome, man. Congratulations.
Yeah, no, I was definitely excited. And then yesterday was a big personal day for me. I got the chance to go and meet a hero of mine, a gentleman named Dorian Yates. He's a former 6-time Mr. Olympia bodybuilding competitor in the 90s who just kind of like broke the mold of what people expected out of the sport back then. He's a champion in so many different ways, successful business owner. He comes from a very rough past and has just, made a great name for himself. And he's got all these wonderful philosophies about self-mastery and mindset and just source of motivation. So I was able to go. I have this little card here. I got a little signature from him, and I got some pictures. But I got to sit down, and it was a really intimate event. We talked for like 2 hours. It was me, 9 other folks, and him, and we just got to talk about anything and everything. And it was an awesome experience and something that I realized I can only get here. If I was back home, those opportunities, that fulfill me in different ways, just weren't happening or don't normally happen up there. It's just not where those kind of events take place and those kind of people go. So I had a moment this week where I was like truly grateful for the extracurriculars that I have access to down here because it was certainly a day I'll never forget. So all things considered, this week has been a home run.
Absolutely. I love it. I love it. You're like, it's sometimes you get bogged down in the minutia, the week to week of, especially when you're in school and it's something like, there's 13 weeks in a semester, and it's just you get bogged down in that. All right, it's another week, it's another week. So it's good to have those kind of weeks that knock you out of that and get you out and remember the real world and remember, the things that you really care about. And then also showing you like that all of this hard work that you're putting in is really working and it's leading to something and you're getting tangible results now from all of the hours and hours that you're putting in. So that's awesome, man. I'm very happy. It sounds like a great week, and it sounds like a Stephen Rombolo week if I've ever heard one.
That is exactly what it is. We're gonna wrap it up tomorrow. I'm gonna go to the actual Mr. Olympia convention, which is like a dream come true.
Sweet.
That's like the Super Bowl of bodybuilding. So you know, we'll see what I can get into. But how have you been? How's your week been?
My week's been great. It started off with a nice big New York Jets win over the New York Giants. I can't complain. It was an ugly, ugly game, as we all know, but my boys in green pulled it out, so I can't complain too much. And then this week, really, you know what? It's been prepping for next week because next week I have my big oral argument competition. So that's super exciting. I had my first practice round today, got my notes. Overall things are looking pretty good. Just basic. I've never done an oral argument of this nature. This is of an appellate nature. So I got my notes. Little things that I have to work on, mostly in regards to like organization in my speech, which is fine. If I'm going to get notes on anything, I'm glad it's something like organization because that's something that I can easily fix just through, writing it out. I was answering my questions that were being asked effectively. I held myself in the proper manner. So that type of stuff is good. It's just the organization stuff, which I think is like the easiest thing to correct and move on from. So I'm looking good. I'm pretty excited for that. That should be fun. What else about this week? Not too much. It's my second week going to the gym, Stephen, as you know, because we're getting prepped for my brother's wedding, which is about 11 months out at this point, a little bit less, 10 and a half. So, I got to get prepped. I got to look good. So, me and him, we've been going. Steve gave us a plan. So, by the end of in about a year, you'll be watching this, and it'll be like two big old yoked guys on the screen. It'll be crazy. But yeah, good week.
We'll both be able to go to the Mr. Olympia next year.
Right. Right. It's not like I haven't been doing this for like 7 years at this point, and I'll be
No,
10 months in or anything.
no, it's okay. But I gotta say, I'm excited to hear about how oral arguments go for you because I know if there's one thing that is just, sort of intrinsic in both of us, it's that ability to kind of stand up and when you got to deliver something orally, just you kill it. I think we're both great public speakers, and I've actually been learning in school about how to structure an appellate brief because I learned this week. I have to give one next semester for my LRW class, so I'm excited to hear about your experience with it because that's something that I'll be encountering within the next like 2 to 3 months. But no doubts that you're going to knock it out of the park. This is what we do, and I mean, look at us. We're right here, right now, doing the thing. So
Yeah, exactly. And that's the whole thing. And this is what I joke with everybody at school. I'm like, look, I came to law school like you came to law school to write and do contracts and do this. I came here to speak. I said, I'm good at one thing in this life, and that's talking. I could talk like nobody else. So give me a microphone, give me something to talk about, and that's where I'm going to shine. And I think that, to be fair, other people are so good at the writing and the research and the other aspects, which are so vitally important in the law. Don't get me wrong; they are so important. I'm a showman. Put me with a microphone in front of a crowd, and I will do my work. I genuinely think we're all put on this earth for a reason, and I think that my reason is to entertain a crowd, whether that is in some sort of advocacy standpoint or podcasting or something else. You got to find that purpose. So
I
I'm
couldn't
super
agree
excited for
more.
it.
Could
Yeah.
not agree more. And I got to say, if I was opposing counsel, I would hate to have a jury trial with you because I know you just have. Look at that, the smile, the charisma, like it's all there. So you're right. You are built for this, quite literally.
Yeah, they're lucky. They are lucky. This is not a jury trial. This is judge. This is appeals. So this is all in front of a circuit of judges. So I gotta schmooze some judges. I don't know how that'll work, but we'll see. We'll find out.
You got it.
Yeah, and you know what? I do have to say, everybody that's in this competition are going to be phenomenal. They're all some of the most brilliant, minds in the school that I've come across, and they're all going to be wonderful oral advocates. So I'm super excited to see that. But Stephen, we have a show that we have to get to, don't we?
Yes, we do.
Um,
Yes, we do. We
look,
got some good
I
stuff.
think I think we do, and I think we should start in New Jersey instead of and we'll take national at the end. What do you think?
I think that's a great way to go about it.
All right, Steve. So how about you? I'll kick it. I'll kick it over to you. You found the story. You get to talk about the story. What's going on
Boom.
in New Jersey with our lovely governor?
So our governor has been having himself a week. Let's put it that way. Briefly, and this isn't the meat of what we're going to talk about, but briefly earlier this week, it came out that the governor, who I'm now really believing is, in his heart of hearts, a Swiftie, because it came out that he spent about $1,000 for a Taylor Swift concert, but it was from a taxpayer financed expense account. So this news broke earlier this week, and granted, not a bombshell of a story because it was sort of patched up. But the story broke that, like I said, Murphy had spent $1,000 for a Taylor Swift concert back in 2018. And allegedly, the Democratic State Committee was supposed to reimburse the state for the purchases, but something must have happened on their end. A really advantageous journalist, noticed this and reported on it, got the jump, and it turns out that it was ultimately paid for through an account that the governor gets. He gets about $95,000 a year in his position with it's like his annual expense account to kind of just things that he wants to do, because he doesn't have enough money already. So we got to give him some taxpayer money to have fun with. But so that was how Murphy started his week, with these accusations of using taxpayer money to go watch Taylor Swift. And then
Wait, Steve, before you move on, I do have to note, he spent the nearly $1,000 on the Taylor Swift. Now, all told, he spent nearly $12,000 at different MetLife events. But it wasn't even like the Eras tour of Taylor Swift. It was
no,
2018. This is the Reputation tour. This is not even the one that like Taylor Swift is making billions off of. This is years ago at this point. He's a fresh-faced
he's an
governor at
OG.
this point, a year in. I guess he's a big Swiftie. Now, I will also note before you move on to the next story, really quickly, I think I understand because you have this fund and like there's the unethical aspect of like moving this taxpayer money over. But like we're acting like all of the money he's going to be spending isn't taxpayer money because he's the governor and he gets paid by the taxpayer. Now he is a multi-millionaire Goldman Sachs guy, but the taxpayers are still paying his money, his salary.
It's very true. It's very true. So, I mean, listen, spending his money on Taylor Swift, if that's how he, chooses to escape the woes of his, politically stressful career, maybe he's going to have to go see her again because this week there was a big blow given to the Murphy administration. The infamous, I'm going to call it, windmill farms that they were planning to build off the shores of New Jersey, beginning actually in fall of this year, were just scrapped by Ørsted, the company out of, I believe they're out in like headquartered in Denmark. Scrapped the plans, and Murphy not too happy about this because, as we've covered, I would say quite extensively on the show, he was putting a lot of political stock and also, taxpayer funded support behind this project that was ultimately going to make New Jersey, the first real wind independent, clean energy state in the country. He has been trying to claim the title of greenest governor in the country, trying to snatch that out of Governor Newsom's hands out of California. And this is quite possibly the most devastating thing to that goal that could have happened. So this broke on Tuesday night, and they scrapped both of the plans. So they were going to build Ocean Wind 1 and Ocean Wind 2. One of them was going to be located, near the northern shores of Jersey. The second one was going to be located on the southern. And they cited essentially very vague terms like macroeconomic factors, inflation, and supply chain issues as to why they're unable to go ahead and complete this project. Murphy, quite upset about this, and I'll read a quote here real quick from him. He says, quote, "Today's decision by Ørsted to abandon its commitments to New Jersey is outrageous and calls into question the company's credibility and competence. As recently as several weeks ago, the company made public statements regarding the viability and progress of the Ocean One wind project." So this was going to bring a lot of jobs. It was going to provide power to about 500,000 homes as soon as it was up and running. And it was going to be a great economic stimulus for the, entire state of New Jersey. we've also covered on this show the controversy surrounding these wind farms and the potential effects that they have on marine life and the ecosystem where they're being built, the rise in, dead mammals washing up on the shores of Connecticut to New Jersey, where they're doing all this surveying, trying to find the right land and everything to get these things situated. So this has been, one of the things, like I said, that Murphy has been in charge of. He's been leading the charge. He's been working hard to get this deal, and now they called it quits. So Murphy has said that he is going to pursue all of the legal options that they have to retain some of the money back. And it looks like that the company Orsted has put up about $300 million that the state is going to be able to keep out of their investment, compared to, I believe their initial investment was going to be somewhere near $4 billion. We're talking pennies on the dollar here. So I think Murphy's absolutely right in trying to go after Orsted to, see what kind of remedies that we have for the people of New Jersey, because whether you support it or not, this was going to be something that created jobs. It's going to be something that, provided some more stability and, I would argue progress on our electrical grid in the state, and had the potential to really make us stand out in the nation as a leader in clean energy, which is something that I think is vitally important moving forward. So we're in a slippery slope, and it'll be curious to see. There's going to be obviously a huge legal battle moving forward to determine exactly how this gets remedied and who's responsible for what.
Yeah, I mean, it's shocking because they pull out, right? And it's because they have this deal with the state that they can continue to reap the benefits even if they wound up pulling out of the deal, right? Because we gave them all of these tax breaks, and and they agreed to pay $300 million if it failed to complete the projects. So Murphy's still trying to get that. The company lost. Company stocks dropped 26%. So it's a $4 billion loss there. But they were promised all of these tax breaks in trying to get this deal done. And in June, right, New Jersey passed a bill granting an exception to Orsted, allowing it to keep tax breaks that it promised to give back to ratepayers to compensate for the associated increased cost of electricity. So they get to keep that money that they would have that they promised to pay back. But I mean, I guess we'll see at the end of the day if they can get that 300, what was it, $300 million, excuse me. But they're not a US company. So sure, they could be sued under US law, but they just don't make any more deals with the US, and it's like, can they really be held accountable to this? This is an out of country company, and I think that that's the dangers with doing deals with these offshore companies, both literally and figuratively, right? Because they're building the offshore wind farms, but they're also not an American
It's good.
company, and it's like, okay, here's the thing, and I don't agree with the wind farms as it is. I think that it's clearly showing an impact on the natural ecosystems of the ocean. I think that they're also just ugly, ugly sight, and would detract from people going to the beaches. I genuinely believe that. Um, but but even if all of that wasn't true, okay, you're claiming to bring jobs to New Jersey, but why aren't we using an American company for those jobs? I don't want some European company, some European energy company to reap the benefits of these tax breaks. You want to make New Jersey a greener country? Use American dollars, use New Jersey dollars to pay American companies that are hiring American employees to do these, right? Like, and I don't understand. Even the Democrats in our state assembly and Senate were like, "Yeah, we knew they were gonna pull out. We knew that they were getting cold feet, and we knew that they wouldn't keep up with their end of the bargain." And so it seems like everybody, whether they're the Republicans who were arguing that we shouldn't have the wind farms for the issues of, um, it would hurt tourist dollars, and it's hurting the natural ecosystem, or the Democrats who are saying we shouldn't trust this company to begin with, looks like they're all winning out at the end of this. And Phil Murphy is the only one with egg on his face, and rightfully so.
Yeah, I think you make a great point about the I would say the desire to have an American company do this. And interestingly, New Jersey has approved, ultimately was going to be three of these, one of them to an American company, Atlantic Shores. But even they, so their project was originally approved in 2021. But after this news broke, they've kind of just come out and said, like, our costs have increased a decent amount. They said about 30% since the deal was initially approved. So it seems like, as much as, when I was saying it, that the issues that Orsted raised were like, inflation, but if costs are really increasing by that much, I think there's a degree of legitimacy to the claim of these companies that it might not be profitable for them to proceed forward based on negotiations that happened at this point 2 years ago, when the economy was totally different, the global stage was totally different, and frankly, people's interests and assumptions about what these windmills would produce and their outcomes were totally different. So I think right now, Murphy, and I'm pinning this on him because he championed this cause so hard. He's in a really tight position because this is the cause he was clearly passionate about. But now it seems like there's no viable options, at least so long as he's in office for the next 3 years. It doesn't seem like anybody's really willing to jump and take on such an ambitious project now that the economy has, taken a decline. There are these legitimate supply chain issues that are going to make these ventures more expensive. And if taxpayers didn't really support it to begin with, because of all the reasons that you mentioned, now that it's more expensive, now that we've had a company pull out already, I doubt that public support is going to increase for anything having to do with the wind farm in the state of New Jersey. And Murphy might just kind of have to hang the hat up, and he gave it his best shot and let it ride on that, and really lean into trying to get money back from Orsted to, like you said, collect those monies, that the tax breaks that they got, that they are somehow allowed to keep. And maybe if he does right by the American people, puts that money back into the, taxpayers' pockets, however he might do it, or at least collects it back from this company, that might be his only saving grace out of the situation, which turned pretty sour for him pretty quickly.
Yeah, no, I would say, it just goes on to as another black mark. If the reasons are inflation, so it's just another black mark on his party in power and their economic systems, that where you have to pretend work every time that they get elected, even though we see the same problems exist every time we elect the members of a certain party, and we have to pretend like that doesn't happen. So I guess we will continue to pretend that the economy doesn't tank upon democratic leadership consistently. And then we wonder why. I mean, so, oh man, inflation. I wonder why that's going on. Maybe we just printed lots and lots of money for people, and now you who were supporting it, meaning Murphy's administration and his party, are now seeing, oh, oh, our decisions have impacts. Oh, that's crazy. I thought, you know what? I have an idea. What if Murphy just goes and he calls up his buddy Joe, and they just print more money and they just give that to Orsted, and maybe they'll come back. I think that maybe that'll work. That seems to be their strategy with all of the other problems that they have.
I say we get him on the line and you pitch it to him, because he might take it and run with it the way he's going.
We don't have enough money. Inflation's too high. We'll just print more. And then we can give it to them. We could give them that money more. We can, we gave you 300 million. Well, here's another 200 million.
All seriousness, I think this is certainly not the proper forum to have a discussion about the economics of party politics, as much as I would love to engage in that conversation. And we're talking about, money that was just created and given to people, like those stimulus checks that had the former president's fat signature on it, which I'm sure were a great help and boost for the economy, and totally didn't contribute to that same problem we're talking about.
Oh, it did.
I think the real thank you. um, I think the real issue here is, and this is what I'm concerned about, quote unquote concerned about for Governor Murphy, is what does he do for the next 3 years? Because truthfully, aside from his ambitions to be energy independent, green energy independent, whatever we're going to call it, I, I don't really know what policies he's championed in this new term as a governor. He came in pursuing this green ideology, and the cornerstone of what he was trying to get done just fell apart. So I think that he's really going to need to find another way to appeal. I mean, not that he has to get reelected again, so it doesn't matter tremendously, but the people of New Jersey deserve a leader who's focused, has clear goals, and is going to overcome these obstacles with certainty and a plan, and he's going to try and do right, because right now Orsted did wrong by the people of New Jersey by just yanking out, taking the taxpayer money and leaving us out to dry. So I think Governor Murphy really needs to step up. He needs to fight for the people of New Jersey, fight for those taxpayer dollars, and fight to find another initiative that the people are going to support while he has, the remaining 3 years left in office. Because 3 years is a long time. And for your big plans to fall apart this early, you're in some trouble.
Yeah, look, I mean, in all honesty, I think the best he could do is try and fight for that $300 million back. But when it comes to anything else, he's just going to get up there and he's going to grandstand about it, and he's not going to get anything done because he can't. He doesn't have the political prowess to get it done at this point. He doesn't have the power to get it done. There's no appetite to get it done. The places that are most affected by these policies don't want this to get done, right? These shore communities. The people that want this to get done are in Trenton and Newark and North Jersey, and they're the brokers of his party and the powers that be. The people that are actually on the ground in the communities, living in these shore communities that reap the benefits of the tourists that come to the New Jersey beaches, don't want this to happen. He was spitting in their face to try and get it done in the first place. So good on him. I don't feel bad at all. I want him to fail. I think that with this policy, I don't want him to succeed there because the whole policy was spitting in the face of the people that it was going to affect the most drastically, and he didn't care. And then you bring concerns like what was going on with the whales and the dolphins and the other ocean life, and he laughs at you. So no, I quite frankly, good. There should be egg on his face. He deserves it.
I think it's hard to argue with that. And to your point about the communities that are reaping the benefits, or not reaping the benefits, I think that's just as valid. And somebody who grew up on a beach town, Barrier Island in New Jersey, a block away from the beach, certainly the eyesore would not have been a pleasant feature. And I would agree with you. I think it is something that would have ultimately detracted from the tourism dollars, which are so important. So in a way, this is a win for the local communities of, the state of New Jersey. But it's two-sided again, because at the same point, as much as it's a win, it's still a loss because this company was able to collect taxpayer dollars and just kind of bounce across the Atlantic, and there needs to be justice there. So like you said, as much of a failure as this is, I don't know if I necessarily agree with the desire for failure on this particular policy, but I do agree, and I expect Murphy to go and be a zealous advocate for the individuals of New Jersey to get that money back. Because if we can't have all of the good things that were supposed to come with these projects, we at least deserve the money back at a bare minimum.
Yeah, I completely agree, and I'm also just not sold that these offshore windmills are going to completely change everything and reverse climate change and be this green initiative that you want. They really wouldn't have produced that much energy at the end of the day, and they wouldn't have changed anything at all period. They would have just been an eyesore and been bad for the ecosystem. If you actually wanted to show me something, you get that $300 million back, you call up a US nuclear company and you put some nuclear plants in the state of New Jersey, and you actually make a difference with the green energy instead of doing something that is just there to give you a pat on the back and it can be Murphy's wind farm so that you have an accolade when you leave the governor's mansion.
Couldn't have said it better.
But we have another story, Stephen, and we're gonna open up open up the camera lens, the angle of the camera, I guess, and then we're gonna take a bigger view and we're gonna go up to the hill. We're gonna talk about
Yep.
some infighting within the Republican Party right now. I know it's one of your favorite topics, Stephen.
Ooh,
Um,
ooh.
but
Like this hasn't been
I
happening for
think
years.
right, no. But I think you'll like this one because Senator Josh Hawley out of Missouri is drawing the ire, to quote The Hill, of Senate Republicans because he proposed legislation that would end unlimited corporate donation to PACs, which is basically calling into question the decision of Citizens United. Now, the question you might ask is who is fighting the hardest against this, and that would be Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell, who pretty much is uh, the inspiration of the Citizens United decision.
Yeah.
Mitch McConnell, there was a lawsuit called McConnell versus the FEC in 2003, where he was directly involved in, where the Supreme Court uh, had decided against McConnell in that case, saying that like there were caps on the amount of money that corporations can give to these PACs. Citizens United ultimately overturned that and said that there was no limit on the amount of money that the corporation could put into PACs. There was limits on how much a PAC can donate to campaigns, but not how much that the corporations can give to the PAC, which then the PAC could use for ads that help a campaign, even though it's not a direct contribution to a campaign. And basically, it opened up the door to lots and lots of quote unquote dark money entering politics where we don't know where this money is coming from, but it's millions upon millions, if not billions of dollars that are going to these super PACs that then go out and do these electoral advertising campaigns against one candidate, one party, one policy point, or another. So, who's in favor of this? The people that have been in party politics forever. Your Mitch McConnells, your Chuck Schumers, your Nancy Pelosi's, your Lindsey Graham's, and so on. Now there seems to be a push from the more populist wings of either party that wants to take this money out of it. Josh Hawley finds himself under that populist wing of the Republican Party, so he has issued this bill calling it the um, let me get the Ending Corporate Influence on Elections Act, which would overturn a cornerstone of the Supreme Court's landmark Citizens United decision that dealt a major blow to campaign finance laws. Hawley has been hostile to corporate America and has criticized its mentality as quote unquote woke, especially after a number of corporations said they would no longer give funds to those who voted against the certification of the 2020 election. Um, he basically what this bill does is it puts caps on the amount of money that publicly traded corporations can put into these PACs. What it doesn't do, what it falls short of doing, I should say, is stopping private companies and entities from doing it, and B, stopping this dark money from going to this PACs where we don't know where the money is coming from. So what we will likely see if this bill were to pass is instead of say Coca-Cola donating millions of dollars to PAC X, they'll take whatever that cap is, say it's $250,000, and they'll put the millions of dollars at the cap limit to a bunch of different PACs, and they'll create a bunch of different PACs in that area. So it's not a perfect bill, and I'm not going to pretend that it is. But I think this is something that Stephen and I would say most of the people of our generation would fall on this issue in saying we need to get this type of money out of our politics, this type of deep pocket, dark funds out of our politics that we don't know where it's coming from, and it completely shuts out the voice of the average everyday citizen. The Citizens United case, for those that don't know, basically said that corporations had the same public, free speech rights as you and I when it comes to political campaigning and generally, because the idea is that corporations are made up of people, so they have the same rights as the individual people. Personally, I think that's a load of baloney. I don't think that that makes any sense at all. Um, and I would also say that I think that the first step that this is a good first step in addressing the issue. This is not the end goal, but politics is a marathon of a race and it's not a sprint. And we can't keep fighting. We can't pretend that we have to fight for gold with every single piece of legislation that's passed. I commend Senator Hawley. He's taking on the powers that be within his own party brass and even trying to get this bill on the Senate floor to begin with to make the initial steps going forward on taking this type of money out of the political game. And I will note there are caps that individuals can spend on campaigns, and not and caps that individuals can give in kind on campaigns. Say you're an artist and you draw, a portrait of a candidate for a campaign message. That has to be considered, and you can only do that work. You can only do so much of that type of work for a campaign, right? When you're an individual. These corporations can take their billions upon billions of dollars, their endless war chests, and they can put it in these PACs and super PACs, and they can completely outsize the influence on our elections.
So I've got a lot on this one. Citizens United, I think, is the worst decision that the Supreme Court has made in modern history. This is not a new or scalding hot take of mine. Kind of always been about this one. And listen, you did a phenomenal job, and I would, agree with everything that you said, except for the fact that I don't think that this is worthy of any praise whatsoever on Hawley. The insurrectionist Hawley is what I know him as. Because when this case was decided, it was decided on constitutional grounds. So this bill is not going to functionally do anything to reverse or remand the decision that came out of Citizens United, where they're going to need the Supreme Court to, take up a case that addresses this clearly and overturns their, poor decision from over a decade ago, or we're going to need a constitutional amendment because this is based on constitutional law. So this isn't really going to do much, and not for nothing. And this is an interesting little bit here. I'm going to read. This is on an NBC article. This doesn't deal with nonprofits. So Citizens United, the organization that the case is named after, was a nonprofit. So he's proposing a bill to end Citizens United, but it doesn't even include the organizations that Citizens United would fall into. And ironically, they mentioned this in an article from Real Clear Politics. It wouldn't stop the group Citizens United, the one that started all this. And they went on to say in the 2022 midterm elections, there's a nonprofit called One Nation, which is aligned heavily with the GOP. They donated $53.5 million, which was the largest political contribution of any organization during the 2022 midterm election cycle. So this bill is baloney. It's fake populism and doesn't do anything productive to actually address the issue. And it doesn't take any money out of his own pockets the way that he's leading people to believe that it would. And that's the problem with these people. It's the same debate that we would get into if somebody proposed a bill to put congressional term limits. And we were talking about this before the show. Are we really going to trust the people who benefit the most from this decision to go ahead and do the things that get rid of this decision? Absolutely not. Not on any regular day, and especially not from a sleazeball like Hawley. I would never. He could never. He can play the political game as much as he wants. And I read the headline and he got me for a second. He tricked me for 1 second. But April was a long time ago. It is April Fools is over, and this decision is not a joke. Should not be treated like a joke. And I think if we're going to make legislation about it, we should put up some serious bills that are going to push us towards getting the constitutional remedy that we need to end this atrocious decision.
Look, I don't necessarily disagree with that, but I think to discount saying that like my problem with is this with when it comes to politics, and this is a critique of how people examine politics across the board, across the political spectrum, no matter whom it is or what. We act like you can get 100, like that it's 100 or 50 or nothing. 1% of a change is still worth making. 1% of a difference on an issue like this is still worth fighting for. Because if it's one or zero, you'd rather one. So
I
at this point, it's one or zero. Take your one.
I don't disagree. I would take the one if Holly had the stones to say, I'm still going to get millions of dollars from nonprofits. I'm still going to get millions of dollars from PACs. And he was clean and upfront about the fact that this will not change the amount of money that he receives in any substantial way. If he owned that it is what it is, and it's a small first step towards correcting the error, cool. But when you come out and you pitch it as this big, we're gonna try to overturn Citizens United, and I'm a originalist and nothing about the original interpretation and blah 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 blah. Spare me your breath, and do something productive. And because what does this do now? Is this his way of causing a stir in the Republican Party? Is he jealous that Matt Gaetz caused a bigger stir? Are we fighting between the insurrectionists as to who is going to be the face of whatever the new birth of the Republican Party is, whatever, who could do the most ridiculous thing? Like, that's what it feels like. So I'll give him credit. He's putting out something that is clearly an issue that a lot of Americans care about. So he's got our attention. We're talking about it now. But for the past 13 years, or it's more than 13 years, nobody's done anything to effectively rectify something that I think a lot of people agree is a bad decision from the Supreme Court. And until we start having meaningful conversations that are going to affect the kind of change that the American people so desire, it's political games. He's getting a rise out of Mitch McConnell. We're talking about it. People are going to report on it for the next week or so. But that's where it stops. That's where the conversation with Citizens United always stops. And that, to me, tells me everything I need to know about how motivated these people are to address the issue that puts money in their pockets and keeps their jobs. Citizens United is job security if you're a politician. Why would you get rid of it?
I mean, it's more than job security. It's a nice fat paycheck of a job security. I mean, but I mean,
Yeah.
I do think I do think it's a bit unfair, right? The money is not this money in particular is not directly going into their pockets, right? It's not like they're becoming millionaires off of this money. It's just keeping them in power for as long as they would like to be.
So
Which then they use that power to then insider trade, which that's what's making them the millions of dollars. So if
yes,
so
and they
facto,
correct. You jumped exactly where I was going to go.
right? If so facto, then they use their power to directly give tax breaks and other regulatory breaks to the companies that then put the money in their packs, and it's all game.
Yeah, it's insider
It's all
baseball
game.
is what they call it, right?
Oh, sure. Lobbying.
Yeah.
But look, I agree with you on a macro level, right? Well, these people are in the positions that they're in, and they benefit from the system the way that it is. Why would we expect them to ever change it? They get nothing out of changing it. Like you said about term limits, like you say about this, like we talk about insider trading in politics, right? They are reaping the benefits of this system. So why don't we see something Why would we expect them to change it at all? And I think that's a great point. And quite frankly, Steve, I wish I was smart enough to give a solution to that problem, but it just doesn't seem like there's a logical solution to the problem. So the best I can do for you is say, we take a small win, we realize that this is something that people care about, and somebody else runs and they say, look, um, they've admitted it's a problem by putting up this bill. Um, and if they're going to admit it's a problem, that means we should pay attention to it. And I'm going to run without making any money from PACs on the platform of getting rid of this completely from politics. And I guess that's the only way forward because if I'm being honest, if there was a piece of legislation and it would be challenged constitutionally, and that's another topic for another day. But if Josh Hawley put up a piece of legislation that says the new Federal Elections Commission should standards should be that there is a cap on the amount of political donations to any individual campaign, no matter whom is making the donation of X amount of dollars, and PACs are not allowed. The only campaigning must be done directly through the office of the election committee of that individual person or the party itself, right? Just completely overturns it. That bill wouldn't even wouldn't even get a second look. People would laugh at it so fast, right? At the very least, I think you can get some populist Republicans to sit with Hawley on this. You could get some Democrats. Hope you would imagine all of the Democrats, but probably not. But like some of the more populist wing of the Democratic Party, the populist wings of the Republican Party, and yeah, is it a PR stunt that won't do much? Probably, but it does something.
So yeah, it does do something, and I think ultimately where I stand on it, back to your comment about a solution, right? I think the solution is we need a courageous leader. We need somebody who is going to do exactly what you said, run their campaign without accepting this kind of money, prove that it's possible, and do right by the American people. Because, like you said, if somebody was to introduce this bill, you said people would laugh. Those people are the people who reap the benefit from that bill not passing. It's not the American people. It's not the family of four that wants to support a candidate that can only donate $20, but that $20 doesn't matter because you have whatever the name of the nonprofit was dumping $53 million into the stream of election commerce. It's unfair. Corporations, I'm going to soapbox for like 1 minute here. I'll watch myself. Corporations should not have the influence over elections that they do, point blank, period. You have a nation of 350 million people, whatever the voting population of that is. Those are the people that need to be able to have those limits on those, what you can spend in a political campaign, so we have an equal playing field. Because unfortunately, as is the case with everything in this country, money affects your chances of success, point blank, period. The more you have, the better off you're going to be. And when it comes down to putting people in positions of power to create legislation that affects the lives of people that you don't know, people across this very large and diverse country, it's a problem. We need to be on an equal playing field. There needs to be a leader who stands up, champions that cause, goes for it, guns on it, and changes the status quo. Because right now, it is just another system, like we mentioned, with term limits, with insider trading, that they continue to benefit from. And the people who are supposed to be reaping the benefits of government, that give the government consent to govern us, are not reaping these same benefits. And in fact, we find it counterintuitive to the entire system, counterintuitive to our interests, and that needs to change. So I will
Yeah,
concede a small win, even if it's just a PR stunt to get people to talk about it. I'll take it. I still think Hawley's a crook. I still think that this is a baloney bill and it's not going to do anything good or anything productive. But I'll take the 1% win because it's a step in the right direction.
yeah, fair enough. And I think that's just kind of how you have to look at politics, period, in general. the for every I don't know for every pro-life movement having a Dobbs decision, there's 50 years of nothing, right? And you can't run a country, and that's whether you agree with the pro-life movement on that or not. Like that's not the point that I'm trying to make is like you can't effectively have a political landscape where the only changes happen in these massive 50-year increments of completely changing an ideology on the Supreme Court. Nothing gets done that way. We have to understand that things don't get done in our political system for a purpose, and I think a valuable purpose, overnight in massive sweeping changing legislation. It you don't want it to work that way because that if it worked that way, guess what? Every 2 to 4 years, everything would be different.
It's true.
So so you want this slow change, and I will wrap up in finality by saying, Stephen, I agree. You need some sort of big, strong leader that comes in and says this and does that. But you know what, Steve? And I know this might break your um, liberal heart
Don't
on
even
this.
do it. Don't even do it.
No, that person's going to have to be really, really a really, really rich person because that's the
Really,
only way they
really.
compete. Really, really rich. The richest guy, some may say. Some may say the richest guy to ever live. I don't know. I don't know. But no. But in all honesty, it's going to take a multimillionaire, if not billionaire, that comes up and they run. And guess what? The Democratic Party, or at least certain sects of the Democratic Party, that makes them want to throw up with every ounce of their being. But if you want these actual monumental change, you got to pick somebody who can play the game without the PACs and without the dark money, and that's going to be a super successful billionaire. It just is what it is. So that's
I
what I've said.
I will also conclude, and I'll say, unlike the wing of the Democrats that you so allude to, that doesn't necessarily scare me. What does break my liberal heart is the fact that I recognize that about 6 years ago, a lot of people realized that, and that the viable candidate at that time was Donald Trump, and Vivek Ramaswamy, on at least on the right, it also kind of presents that sort of same. I did it on my own. I'm an entrepreneur. I have the money. I don't need the PACs. He's just not as compelling. He doesn't have the same pull. And truthfully, somebody who supports the former president for that reason, I'd never have a qualm with that. I would never have an issue with that. And I agree, as much as I might not like his policy, that is one of the great benefits of having somebody like Donald Trump in office. I think that the left really needs to do some soul searching, find their candidate, find that well, let me backtrack on that, because the left would never, like you said, support that candidate. Somebody needs to step up, needs to have the courage, and needs to champion this cause, because it's not, as much as we're talking about this in terms of party, it's not a party issue. It's an American issue. We're talking about the stream of commerce in free and fair elections in the greatest democracy to have ever existed. That's a big issue. That is bigger than Republican. It's bigger than Democrat. It's bigger than a decade worth of fighting. So I'm also with you on that fact. This should not change overnight. It should be a gradual change, and we should make sure that once this issue is fixed, once we have a remedy to a decision that a lot of people agree is bad, it is an equitable remedy. It is something that people are happy with in large amounts, and it is something that solves the principal issue and keeps the most amount of people happy. That's how we need to solve this issue. And, it's like you said, it's going to take a really, really rich guy with a lot of money and a lot of courage and no embarrassment to stand up and do it. So this is a fight that we're going to continue to fight for a long time, it seems. But my support to overturn Citizens United is unwavering. And like I said earlier, worth repeating, as much as I think it's a PR stunt, I'll do a small tip of the hat to Howie for making some sort of progress in the right direction.
Yeah, I think that that's fair, and I think, like you said, this is not a Democrat or Republican issue. It shouldn't be. This is an American people against a class of people like your Mitch McConnells and your Chuck Schumers that are forever politicians that will never leave office because they're reaping too many rewards from it. And and yeah, it's either going to take a really rich person or somebody with a lot of some other cachet and appeal that they can overcome those types of burdens. Maybe a nice last name of a former president and a former senator and a former attorney general, something like that. But with that, I
Was was that an allusion to a specific person?
that was an allusion to a specific person. He might
That I
share the
totally
name with
missed?
a former he might share the name with a former presidential candidate, um, who was assassinated just like his elder brother was
Gotcha,
assassinated.
gotcha, gotcha.
Uh, So, but with that, this has been another episode of Bridging the Gap here on the Jersey First TV network. Election Day is Tuesday, November 7th. Get out there and vote. There's a lot of big elections in New Jersey, mayoral, board of ed, and city and town council. So get out there, vote for your local representatives. Your local government matters. It means something to your everyday life. So get out there and vote Tuesday, November 7th, if you haven't voted already by mail. So with that, I'm AJ Malillo,
Steve Rimbolo.
and you have a wonderful week. We'll talk to you next Saturday. We'll have election results. Goodbye, everybody.